Everyone online is doing these 1 year goal setting exercise right now. Habits, mindsets, routines, anything you can think of. But how many people are out there doing financial reset? If you're a real estate investor and you want to make more money in 2026 without chasing an undefined moving target, this video is for you. Hi everyone, my name is Cherry Chen. I'm a chartered professional accountant located in Oakville, Ontario, Canada, and I'm on a mission to become the Google map for hardworking Canadians seeking financial freedom. And today's topic is about how to make more money in 2026, especially if you are a real estate investor. Now, quick question before we get started. When you say, I want to make more money in 2026, do you actually know what it means? And do you actually know what that number is? It's hard to chase an unlimited number that keeps moving away. If you like this type of content, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below so that you can stay on top of the latest money and tax tips. And as we go, leave comments and I read them all. And they help shape the future content as well. With that, let's get started. This whole video is inspired by my role model, Jesse Itzler's framework for designing your year. The first step is simple. What went well, what didn't work, and what did I accomplish? Most people answer this emotionally. I want you to answer it financially. Instead of, I was busy, ask, did my net worth actually go up? Did my real estate portfolio improve cash flow? Did I feel more or less stressed about money? Now let's look at an example. Let's look at the definition of net worth. It's the easiest way for you to take that step one. The definition of net worth is super simple. Net worth is what you own, essentially what you own asset-wise minus what you owe in terms of liability-wise. As an example, assets. Your own home, $1.2 million. Your first rental property, $600,000. Your second rental property, $550,000. And you have some investment on the side, $200,000, and cash on the side of $10,000. So your total asset value is $2.56 million. And let's look at your liabilities. Now, let's say total mortgages on all of your properties is $1.86 million, and your home equity line of credit is $180,000. You have credit card debt of $20,000. So your total liability is $2.06 million. Your total asset is $2.56, and your total liability is $2.06 million. So your total net worth overall is about $500,000. The real question is, the $500,000 was the number at the end of 2025. What was the number in 2024? If you don't have that number, that's okay too. But that is your starting point. That is how you have a number to track year over year. And that's how you see whether you have progress or you're stagnant. So my question to you is, did your net worth move into the right direction? Did your net worth move in the direction that you expected in 2025? If not, was it intentional? Was there a reason for it? No judgment there. It's just fact finding. Now, net worth is just the beginning. You could calculate your cash flow. You could calculate your equity pay down. You could calculate everything all together. But net worth is the cornerstone to do your financial review. Now, step 2, financial declutter. Jesse talks about digital detoxing and cleaning his closet out at the end of the year. Financially, this step is huge. Clutter hides problem. This is where you would clean up your bank accounts, cancel subscription, simplify your credit cards, organize tax paperwork, and look at each property individually or look at each investment individually. Now, clutter would also include investments that are not cash flowing, such as a negative cash flowing rental property. Clutter also includes investments that quietly drain you, like a property that would have turnover of tenants and tenants stop paying. This is the time of the year to ask yourself, is this investment putting money in my pocket or taking it out? Now, let's use an example to calculate the cash flow of this particular rental property as an example. Now, this particular rental property, we're generating rent for about $3,200 on a monthly basis, equivalent to $38,400 annual basis. The mortgage amount that I have to pay on a regular basis from my bank account, including interest and principal, is about $2,200 a month. This is equivalent to $26,400 in annual cash outflow. Now, I also do property tax tax, that's about $400 a month. Insurance is $120 a month. Maintenance is about $200 a month. And I have property management fees of about $300. Now, all in all, it's about $3,220 that we are incurring on a monthly basis. Now, that has not accounted for even the line of credit interest of $430 that I'm incurring for the purpose of calculating the cash flow. So all in all, with the line of credit interest, I use that line of credit, the borrow money to purchase this rental property. So I have that line of credit interest. So the total cash outflow is $3,650. If I take the monthly rent of $3,200 minus my total cash outflow of $3,650, we're negative cash flowing $450 a month. That $450 monthly number is quite a large amount. And if you look at the annual number, we're looking at $5,400 negative cash outflow. This is what financial clutter hides, because sometimes when we look at our overall rental portfolio, we look at one property combined with another property that's doing really, really well. You might not be able to see this $450 negative cash outflowing property individually and see how much an impact it is on your overall portfolio and how much of an impact it has in terms of impacting where you want to get to. And this is what financial clutter hides. Now, question for you. Do you know which properties or which investments pay you? And which investment or property you're feeding cash into on a monthly basis. Now, let's move on to step 3, relationship review. Jesse's third step is to take care of the relationship, say thank you, and write handwritten thank you letters to send out at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year. Now, applying the same concept to real estate, the reality is that money flows through people, real estate especially. Think about the realtors, the mortgage brokers, the contractors, the joint venture partners that you work with, your mentors, your accountants, your lawyers that you work with, who help you move forward. But this step also reviews friction. Some relationships quietly drain you. JV partners where decisions take forever to make, communication is poor, emotions override logic, drama replaces clarity. I recently went on a long hike with Erwin for 3 hours. There were no kids, ocean views. We reflected on 2025 and we talked about the difficult people and difficult situations that I have been in. And I made a decision for 2026. I'm saying no to drama myself. And this includes quitting a role where I truly enjoy the work, but hated dealing with the drama behind it. And yes, that includes drama in joint venture partnership and financial relationships as well. Now, question to you. Have you ever had a partnership that worked on paper but caused consistent stress? Now, step 4, what to fix in the upcoming year. This step gives most people a headache. In Jesse's video, you pick 2 or 3 things to fix in the upcoming year, not everything. So how do you choose? Here's the filter. Look for areas that create low return, negative return, or ongoing stress. If something gives you a headache every time you think about it, that matters. For real estate investors, this often looks like negative cash flowing properties, properties with no appreciation and no principal pay down, interest only line of credit strategies that were never revisited, joint venture relationships that's draining your energy day to day, debt structures that worked once but no longer serve you today. These are not failures. They are expired decisions. Let me give you a personal example. Over the holidays, I get to spend some time with my parents back home, and I was sharing with my parents about how I carry a few of the properties using line of credit instead of a traditional mortgage. When you carry the debt in the form of line of credit, what it means is that all you need to pay is the minimum amount, which is the line of credit interest. You do not need to carry the principal pay down. There is no principal pay down requirement. So my dad then turned around and asked me, because in his mind, one of the benefits of owning real estate is the forced saving that's allowed from supporting, forced saving that's required through the mortgage pay down. but there is no such thing in my line of credit arrangement. And his question prompted me to rethink about my line of credit strategy. At the time, I set up the line of credit a few years ago because at the time when we set it up, we needed the flexibility and liquidity. We used the liquidity in order for us to allow some liquidity to finance the host of the Wealth Hacker Conference back in 2022, where Jesse Itzler actually spoke at. That was what I was trying to do. I don't want the monthly commitment. I want the minimum payment so that I have some room in case anything would go wrong with that particular conference. But fast forward to 2025, end of 2025, early 2026, that strategy no longer served me. So now I'm going to revisit that decision again, and we are going to make a decision on how we are proceeding. So question for you now, do you have some of those debt that you would like to revisit now because the strategy may not be serving you anymore, and you would look at your portfolio and see if there are room for improvement? Some good decisions expire if you don't reassess them. What's the one thing in your portfolio that immediately causes stress? What's a decision that you've made a few years back on your investment that no longer works for you? If you're holding a losing investment, ask this. If I sell and reinvest at a 7%, at an investment that generates 7% annually, how long does it take to recover that loss? At 7%, money roughly doubles in about 10 years. Sometimes cutting a loss today beats holding and hoping for 20 years. Hope is not a strategy, unfortunately. Now, step 5, last step, design your year intentionally. Now, we designed the year around fixing those 2 or 3 things. And we need to also design one Misogi. And Misogi is one big, uncomfortable, year-defining decision, not a habit, not a checklist. Financially, this could be for you selling a losing property, exiting or restructuring a bad joint venture relationship. For me, revisiting my line of credit only strategy, restructuring debt, defining your need number clearly, and one decision. That's what changes the trajectory. In Jesse's video, he talks about something also called Kevin's rule. What's Kevin's rule? Kevin's rule is about mini adventures. And Jesse's point is that life shouldn't be postponed until everything is perfect. While financial translation, can your portfolio really support those small, regular breaks? Does your cash flow buy you time now? If money only works on paper, something is off. This keeps the why alive. One last thing, Jesse mentioned building one habit every single quarter. Now, from a financial perspective, you can do your quarterly net worth review, you can do your quarterly property cash flow review, you can do your quarterly mortgage and debt review, and quarterly reflection on what worked, what didn't work, a check-in time. This prevents good decisions from expiring altogether. Making more money in 2026 isn't about hustle. It's about being honest, having that reflection, financial decluttering, relationship clarity, fixing only 2 to 3 things, and defining your need number and designing the year intentionally. You may need less than you think, and you may already have enough than you realize, and go enjoy it. If this video helped you think differently, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss the future money and tax tips. Now, I want to hear from you. What's the one thing you're going to revisit in 2026? Drop it in the comments below. Hi everyone, we are all the way from Westlake, Hangzhou, China, which is about 2.5 hour drive from Shanghai. And we're filming it all from this beautiful motorboat that we're on. And I'm actually shocked to find out from ChatGPT that there is no such thing as deemed disposition tax in China. There's no probate and no estate taxes altogether. And that's shocking to know.
Yeah, because that's not true in Canada as all. We do have deemed disposition when people pass away and their portfolios are basically sold at market value and the estate has to pay tax on that. So that's one of the things that we're talking about at the Wealth Summit. And having done over 40 plus consultations with wealth planning clients, they're often shocked. The tax on estate will be projected tax on estate on the low end for most clients is like 1.5 million. And for some, it could be 5 million, or depending how well their real estate portfolio performs. So it's a topic that's been quite shocking to many people. And it's a topic that we'll be covering at the Wealth Summit on January 31st.
And we're going to talk about ways to lower your probate taxes and the difference between probate and income tax and what you have to do to plan it. So make sure you register for our upcoming Wealth Summit. And we have to get back to our family now and enjoy this beautiful view and nice weather.